Onions are a lot like a cannabis plant. No, just hang with me here. Trust me. Did you know that there's something that you can probably plant either now or really soon? The very first one that you don't want to miss. So we're going to plant these seeds, but first I want to check on the greenhouse. I haven't been in there in a little while since this cold snap went by, and just kind of see how things are going. I've been doing a little bit of cleanup. We had a couple nights of basically 28 degrees, and I'm happy to announce the greenhouse has been able to stay about 5 to 6 degrees above. So it's thanks to these water tanks here. And then I would take my watering cans and fill them up as well, just to kind of heat up the water during the day and release the heat. But everything's looking pretty good in here. I mean, it's a little bit behind schedule. We're a little bit dry. I think I should probably water soon. But this mustard I transplanted from out in the main garden, and you can see it's really doing good. It wasn't looking like it was going to do too much. And I put another one out as well, so my Brussels sprouts are still teeny weeny. We're going to kind of go back to the drawing board about that. I kind of got a little bit of intel the other day, so I'll share that with you guys. The collard plants, now that it's starting to cool off, they're really starting to do their thing. Give them a little bit more water and maybe some food, and they should take right off now that it's cooled off. I mean, that's the thing about this greenhouse is it's it's late November, early December. And I mean, as I'm standing in here right now, it's 65 degrees outside and it's 85 in here. So it takes time to just let things cool off more and more, so these cool season veggies can kind of get comfortable. And with the water tanks have really helped out, because with keeping that temperature 6 degrees above the low, it's really nice, because not only am I keeping it above freezing, which it hasn't gotten below 32 in here yet, but what it's doing is it's allowing me to minimize that temperature swing. So by having this little fan pointed up towards the window, it's able to blow the heat out once the window opens, but it's on an automatic vent. So that's how I know it's starting to get warm in here. And then if I close the door early enough and trap some of the heat, that'll help keep it warm. But then if I open it early in the morning, then it kind of helps regulate that temperature inside the greenhouse. And that's been really good, because there's been times like last year, I remember my lettuce bolted in December, and we don't have a lot of lettuce in here, but it is not bolting what we do have. So it works out pretty well. So minimizing that swing has been really helpful in here. Just as soon as we get these cool temperatures, this rutabaga is really starting to take off. I'm probably gonna have to hill it up a little bit because it's starting to fall over. So I'll hill it. But I also started a couple more plants here and here so I can get a succession harvest. And the lettuce that I just threw down just to kind of fill in the gaps is all taken off. Now, these beets, I don't know. I think I put some, oh, actually, I don't think, I know I put some old beet seeds down. But again, with this cooler weather, they're starting to perk up. They've definitely been at a disadvantage this whole time. So I don't have huge hopes for them. But based on the sunlight that we have, I got to get out of there, it's hot. Based on the sunlight that we have in there right now and the temperatures, I don't expect to get a harvest from anything until really about January, which is when the rest of my garden will start to slow down. So it's going to work out pretty good. But those old beet seeds, I think, I have a couple left. I think I'm just going to have to toss them, because all of them just that I have scattered throughout the gardens, they just don't really meet my requirements. And I don't eat a lot of beets anyways. So, I mean, if I grow 10 beets, that's going to be enough for me. And even my whole family, we're not really big fans of beets, but it's something to grow and keep that soil active in the wintertime. These are some more rutabagas that we started. And it looks like, let me get my official greenhouse pruners. And we'll just, every once in a while we come out and thin them out a little bit. You don't want them to kind of get overtaken. And I'll come out and thin these throughout. But these will be planted inside the greenhouse as well. As soon as something else comes out, this should be a little mini row that'll work out good. We've got a couple more kohlrabis, and they're doing good. The true leaves are starting to come out. They're a little leggy because of the amount of sun we get in here, but that's not the end of the world. And then we have our onions. So I've decided what to do with our onions. We've talked about these in the past. These are our yellow granites that are known to grow in this area. They're a short day variety. So we're definitely going to grow these. And these are our Utah onions, jumbo intermediate days. And I read literature that says, yes, you can grow them here, and then no, you can't grow intermediate days. So look, it just opened up, starting to warm up in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little test and put a couple of these out and see if I can get them to actually bulb. But I don't know. I'm not really totally sold on it. I like the Vidalia onions anyways, so that'll work out better. And I think these are still a sweet onion, but we'll see how big they get and if they'll even bulb. Which is pretty convenient that we have onions growing in here, because that's what we're going to be talking about is onions. These are like the first thing that you can grow and start seeds in your garden for the year. So we're going to start a lot of onions today. This is going to be my final sowing, more than likely, of onions. And we're going to grow them inside, and we're going to plant them out in probably about January. So this is a 162 tray. It means there's 162 cells in here. And these are going to be perfect for growing the onions. And we're just going to plant these up and get them started. So these are going to work out really good, because onions are different than a lot of plants when it comes to, separating seedlings. So what that means is when you get your seedling, you can put multiple seeds in a tray and you don't need to thin them. Because the roots are so tough, when you break them apart, they won't really break. They just separate into separate plants, and then you can plant them out in your garden. So you can get a bigger bang for your buck. So this is 162 cells. If I put 3 seeds in each tray, that means I'm going to get close to 400 onion plants out of here. And I know what you're wondering. Why am I planting 400 onion plants? I don't have that much space. I mean, you can put 4 onions in 1 square foot. And I don't have 800, 1,200 square feet or whatever for all of these onions. So what I do is I grow them and then I sell the seedlings. And I do that, one, obviously to raise money for what we're doing and help offset the costs, but also to help other people learn to grow and really be involved in their food process. And onions, I have a real interesting relationship with growing onions. So as long as I've been gardening, I always saw people growing onions. I've known a lot of people that have grown them. Same with potatoes. And over the years, I never really wanted to, because first of all, I can go get a bag of potatoes for what? $3? It was $3. I can go get a bag of onions. At the time it was like 50, 60 cents, maybe 75 cents, something like that. I don't know. $1.25 for a bag of onions. And then I started growing my garden. My garden got bigger and bigger. And for a couple years, I kind of had the issue of I don't know what to plant in my garden. And then we had this whole pandemic thing happen, and, transportation issues and inflation, and prices are going up. And I've realized now that potatoes are going upwards of $8 a bag. Onions are going upwards of, $4 a bag sometimes. And within my space, I can fit in some of these crops. Not to mention, we really like eating onions. And onions go in everything. It doesn't matter what meal we make, there is an onion going in it more than likely. It's sauteed, it's fresh, whatever. It doesn't matter. So it kind of made sense to make this transition over into growing what we like to call our essential edibles. And this is definitely, if you had to ask me of everything that we grow, an onion is our most essential edible. Straight up. It goes in everything. So if you think about it, if you get 4 in a square foot, we give it 3 8-foot rows. That's 24 square feet. I mean, that's 60 some odd onions. Not to mention that these onions are the Vidalia onions. So they get, big, and they're $1 an onion. So for every square foot, that's $4 worth of onions. I mean, that's crazy. So, I started off one way and I was like, I'm never going to grow onions. It doesn't make any sense. It's space that doesn't need to be taken up. To now it's like, well, maybe we should try it out and we should give it a shot. And based off of our crop rotation schedule and all that, we can definitely fit more onions in and still have some of these crops that we want to grow for the year. So we got 3 onions in each hole. And now we're just gonna spread some perlite on it to top dress it. We just set them in, we didn't dig them in or anything. And this has worked out really well for me so far because it keeps the soil moist, but also it's so light that the plant can push up through it easily. I mean, let me show you. This is how light it is. You see what I'm saying? Just a light blow, so it's like all of these seedlings are gonna pop right through it and it won't impede the process at all. Not to mention the light will get through a little bit because of all the nooks and crannies. It'll hold a little bit of moisture in, and let's face it, if you have any kind of compaction issues in your garden or anything like that, you can use a little bit of perlite in your garden, so whatever's on top will naturally go into the garden when you plant. So it works out pretty good if you ask me. And we'll just take it and kind of brush it in a little bit. And I think if you wanted to calculate how much this perlite was that I used, it's probably about 15 cents worth of perlite. All right, so now we're gonna water this in. And you have to be, just like with any other seedling, it's careful. Now I use a special watering can. So this watering can I use for bonsai, and see how the top's turned up? It gives it a nice gentle spray, or like a droplet. And I just go side to side, overlapping, just to kind of wet it real good. See how it's just pushing up that perlite? You don't want it to push up too much. And for the record, I have the bucket down here so I can catch the water and then put the leftovers in my compost. Because you need water in your compost in order to have good hot compost. It's one of the things, it's air, food, and water, just like us. You can get onions from the store in like bulbs, the small bulbs, but there's two problems with those. One is that bulb is actually a year old, so it's basically ready to bolt and produce seed, which means you're not going to get a decent sized bulb to eat. And then the other problem, which was the biggest problem I have, is you have no clue what type of onions they are. So I planted 2 bags of them in my garden 2 years ago, and I didn't get a single bulb out of them. Not one. And my suspicion is I actually, even though I bought them locally from like, 5 miles down the road from my house, 10 miles, something like that, I figured like, hey, if they're selling them locally at a store, they've got to be short day onions. I imagine they were probably long day onions. So, which means they're not going to grow here. They're never going to get to the bulb, because onions are a lot like a cannabis plant. No, just hang with me here. Trust me. A cannabis plant will start to produce the bud that you would smoke, eat, or whatever, ingest once daylight hits a certain amount of time. Well, it's the same with onions. It won't produce a bulb until you get a specific amount of daylight, and it varies from short day to intermediate day to long day onions. So if you never ever get that amount of sunlight, like long day onions, I think it's like 16, maybe it's 18 hours, something like that of sunlight, I'm not sure exactly, then you're never going to get that bulb. You're just going to get vegetative growth all the same time. And if you really want to compare it directly to cannabis growing, then it would be a lot like it'd be in the veg stage for just indefinitely until the frost got it, or until it went to seed. So you want to make sure that you're getting the one for your area, and that's why we're growing these Gran-X onions. They're short day, and like I said, we really like them. Now I'm going to show you where we're going to put them, and there's a little bit, one reason why we're starting more now is because we have to wait because of this situation. So if you remember, we had this bed here and we just replaced the frame of it, and all summer it was crumbling, it was falling apart, the wood had rotted. And so we replaced the bed, but look at what happened when we replaced it. Look how low we were on soil. I mean, we've got a good 3 inches of soil we can add into here. So there's no point in really planting anything. As soon as all of this comes to harvest, we'll empty it out and then we'll refill this bed. And that'll give us enough soil, and fresh soil with a lot of nutrients in it that hasn't been drained, in order to grow these onions out for the year. So, coming into the next, I'd say probably a month, roughly, especially if we keep this warm weather up, which I really hope we do. But if we keep this warm weather up, then I'd say we'd be able to harvest everything out and then refill the bed. And then we'll come back in and refill all the other beds as well, because we've noticed like this bed right here, the turnip and radish bed, is low. We can add about another 2 inches of soil to that. This one right here that we planted our garlic in the other day, where we at right here, that one can take about 1 inch. Same with this one over here. And then the wild garden, we actually need to put better soil in because we got that bad soil last year. So we'll do it here in the next month or so. Just bring in some soil, top everything off, and then we'll have a nice, even, healthy bed to put these plants in and grow them out. So if you've grown onions and you've had really good luck, let me know what varieties you've had. Let me know what worked for you and what didn't. And if you want to grow onions, let us know that too. Let us know down below if you want to grow onions and, you know, get yourself a good variety based on your latitude and where you live. And there's maps online that can tell you. And if you like this video, give us a subscribe.